Yep. Hey, what should we do? Thank you, Bobby. Joining us right now, we gave her an out. Let's give credit where credit's due. We gave her an out. I got sleepy Kayte about a half hour ago.
She's a trooper.
I said, hey, we'll push. It's okay. We said at the beginning of the show, maybe Kayte at 9.
Yeah. They traveled last night.
Yeah, God knows. I'm betting she got in 1, 2 a.m. maybe. And she goes, no, I'm in. And now bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. What does that even mean, bushy-tailed? I don't know. It's your analyst for the Sacramento Kings, Kayte Christensen. Good morning, Kayte, I hope.
Good morning.
You get a cup of coffee yet?
I just sat down with my cup of coffee, yes.
Well, listen, Jason, go ahead, because it was your idea, our first question to her.
Oh, yeah, well, partly because we haven't eaten in 3 days, so we're so enamored with food, but G-Man told us about this amazing team dinner the other night, Maple and Ash?
Maple and Ash, yeah.
Describe it. What did you eat? Tell us every detail.
Describe it.
Oh, yeah, you want to know every detail.
Yeah, we're so hungry.
No, it's terrible in a way, I'm going to be honest, because I went on a diet in like September and I've lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So I don't have like a huge appetite anymore. And so, I really screwed this one up. They have like multiple courses. And by the time we got to the main course, which was like ribeye, filet, salmon, a bunch of sides, like I had like a bite of potatoes, which were so fantastic. But I missed out on the main course, but they had, like a seafood platter of like, and it was all cooked. So it was like shrimp and mussels and clams and crab. And, they had a lot. They had like these fantastic meatballs. They had oyster shooters that had caviar that came with a shot that was like vodka and I didn't do the shot. Oh God, no. But it was like a chaser for the oyster, which I've never had before, but it was like vodka and like a citrus oil and something else. Just a lot of really, really, really good food. Yeah. And good wine. There was good wine too.
You okay?
What?
You don't look like you're okay.
So
yeah.
Chris mentioned, because I tried calling and it just rang and rang and rang. And so I texted him, I said, I tried calling, and he answered the second time. He's like, sorry, this water diet has us all running to the bathroom. What are you guys doing? May I ask?
We just had this idea.
It was Dave's idea.
Yeah. I read this thing and like 3 days, and again, don't try this at home. This is not a doctor's thing and blah, blah, blah. And this is us and not you and legal. But read this thing where it was talking about 3-day water fasts and how it does great things for you. A lot of people have been hearing this all week long. So we all, Jason and Chris, were like, let's do it together, which is awesome. So I went out and got everybody what we're allowed to do. So we can have water, and you can have like a mug of bone broth a day, and then some electrolytes and stuff. But Chris hasn't done any of that. Jason and I did the bone broth. It's not yummy. And our last meal was at right around 6-7 o'clock Sunday night. So tonight is wait, hey, hold on a second. Is that where breakfast came from?
Yes, it's breaking fast.
Yo,
yes.
Is that where that came?
You were this many years old?
Break fast. Yo, I had no idea. I thought it was a term, breakfast. It's not. Well, why don't we call it break fast? Why don't we call it? That's misleading. We should call it break fast. Anyways, I'll deal with that. They say you have better mental acuity when you're fasting too. So we finish up tonight, and we had G-Man on a couple days ago, and I went immediately, like my wife, as you know, went straight to the menu online and started looking at food porn. And I was looking at like the meatballs or Wagyu meatballs, the seafood tower, and then apparently there's a dish there they offer for $200 called I don't give a F word, and that's apparently you pay that and they just take care of you.
Yeah, you trust them.
You trust them to feed. It sounds like it was amazing, and so everyone wants to hear Kings. We want to hear about food.
Yeah. Well, it was good. It was a few days ago, so and I got about 4.5 hours of sleep, so I'm forgetting some of the stuff that was there, but I can tell you it was really delicious.
All right, then.
Well,
let's transfer in there. Kayte, true or false? the Doug thing's a mirage. We should probably trade everybody. Everything's done. They lost last night. It was all fake. I mean, honestly, we talked about degrees of wins and losses, and yeah, it was a loss last night, but they outscored the Bucks by I think 5 or 6 after that first quarter. It just, the Bucks are really good, Kayte, when Giannis is like that. I think that's my analysis.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, no one ever likes losing. I mean, we can get a little greedy sometimes, you know, coming off a 7-game win streak and then the sky's falling. I don't know. I don't look at it that way. I don't know if other people are looking at it that way, but I did radio long enough to know that there's probably some that are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to G-Man actually after the game, and here's the thing for me is I think losses are a really good reminder when you're riding high, that the level of focus and detail that you have to have every night in the NBA, regardless of who you're facing, it's a really high demand. And that first quarter was just a stark reminder of how you can't ever feel too comfortable, get too, you know, kind of up in yourself about how, you know, great you're playing and how great the team is. And you need these reminders to kind of, you know, keep you hungry and set you on the right path throughout, you know, an 82 game season. Kings are at 500, you know, the sky literally was falling about 2+ weeks ago, you know, and I think this is a great reminder. We didn't have Malik Monk. That obviously hurts in a big way. Does it change things? You never know. But you also have to keep in mind that the Bucks, who started the season 2-8, were coming off a 34-point loss to the Knicks. And I was texting with Jerry Reynolds in the morning and brought that up, and he was like, yeah, that's not good. And so that's just kind of part of the reality. Everyone is kind of going through their own cycles during the course of the season, and sometimes you're going to run into a buzzsaw, and the Kings ran into a buzzsaw in the first quarter, and that was, they tried like crazy to climb out of that. And, you know, you got to give credit to Milwaukee. They played a really good game, and they needed it, you know, coming off of the loss that they had to New York.
Kayte, what are the elements that, you know, let's take even with the loss last night, but combined with, we'll take the road trip, the 3 games where I think it was really pretty good. 2-1, they added to the win streak, ultimately lost last night. But what are some of the elements that you think this team can continue, can take forward, can lead to more success as they go into the back half of the season?
Well, their defense has been way better to me, and better in the sense that they're changing it up. They're making sure that during the course of 48 minutes that, because everyone kind of manages games differently in terms of how they attack things. And, you know, it's very common in the NBA to, when you come out at halftime, you're going to show a lot of different things on defense. So that the team doesn't have an opportunity at halftime to kind of, you know, adjust and figure out a game plan against some of the things that you're going to use down the stretch. Well, it doesn't really matter down the stretch, you know, if you let someone get into a rhythm and, you know, get comfortable and those types of things. So I feel like the defense and how they're approaching the game and game planning, you know, with their defensive game plan has been much better. And we're seeing, you know, like we saw in Chicago, we've seen it the whole stretch, you know, trapping Zach LaVine as soon as he crosses half court, forcing turnovers, those types of things. So to me, the biggest thing that I don't know, sticks out in my head is just how much their defense has created offense for them. And that can continue, because to me, defense is purely about effort, hustle. And then, you know, there's a large level of focus to it, right? Of making sure that you're on the same page in terms of what the plan is, and being able to call things on the fly and adjust quickly. So I think that's a big one, but the pace on the offensive side to me is big, because they're really not running plays, you guys. They're purely scoring off their defense, and Doug Christie is allowing them a ton of freedom to be able to react to the game and trusting their, you know, their basketball IQ to make the right decisions, to put people in the right places. And they've done a good job. And there's been some rough spots in that. Like Miami was a rough spot. I think that their defense kind of stymied them a little bit, but they adjusted and they ended up winning that game. So those are the two things, for me, the adjustments on defense and changing things up, and then just the pace that they're playing with more consistently.
Kayte Christensen, fresh off the road trip, joining us right now ahead of their next matchup versus Houston on TNT as well. And Kayte, going to a more psychological part, which is obviously very subjective, and you may disagree, but we were talking earlier, just from my point of view, I and I know that I don't use this word lightly, but I thought they quit against the Pacers in the second half. I thought blowing the 17-point home lead against the Pistons in the very next game, like that whole stretch to me was just terrible. And it's one thing to lose. It's another thing the way they lose. But you mentioned the Miami game. They had all kinds of adversity and they came back and they ended up winning. The Bulls game, that game was ripe for them to lose on the road. LaVine was on fire. They're on the road. It's a feisty Bulls team. And even last night, getting blown out in the first quarter, but Giannis and all the other starters played 30-plus minutes. They had to keep them in because the Kings were threatening to cut it to single digits. From a layman's point of view, psychological point of view, it seems like Doug has this, look, if we're going to get beat, we're going to get the other guy bloody at the same time type of attitude that he's instilling in the team. And it seems like it's making a difference, even in a loss like yesterday.
There's no denying that. You're 100% right, which, just let that settle in for a minute.
Oh, I'm running around
once in a while.
What I'm doing.
Yeah. You should celebrate that. I know it doesn't come often. But, I'm going to take you kind of back to the Boston game. Prior to that game, we had found out in the pregame press conference with Doug that, the players had put together a kind of like a mixtape, if you will, of Doug's defensive prowess during his time with the Kings. And, I had no idea where it came from, kind of found out. Doug said, I think DeMar did it. And so I went to DeMar and talked to him, after his warm up before the game. I was like, okay, so did you do this? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, what was the thought process behind it? Why did you do it? And he said, well, he goes, a lot of these guys probably didn't see Doug play. And he goes, I thought it was important for them to see him play and the way that he played on the defensive end so that everyone can understand when someone's asking you to do something like Doug is, where it's coming from. And that's what he is expecting from us. That's what he's demanding from us because he gave that every day on the floor. And I just thought that was so genius of DeMar because, and it's funny, I asked Doug about it. Keon still thinks he's a better defender than Doug. Which I think is so great because Doug is all about elevating people, but there's still this really competitive side to him. And so he gets a kick out of it. And I think that, showing that, and you got to keep in mind, like Doug was an all defensive player. And, he did his thing when he played, but he does demand a lot from the players. But the way that Doug coaches, which I think people are seeing more clearly now, and gosh, you can pick him up. We heard him through our headphones and we were all the way at the top of the lower bowl last night.
Wasn't the celebration, if I remember right, Kayte, the 5-second call in Chicago out of bounds. Don't I remember you saying something like they're celebrating right in front of us? You can hear Doug through the mic probably. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because Doug's way of coaching, and it's so blatant. It's so obvious, apparent. He is an elevator. He cheers you on. He's gonna, tap you up. He's going to support you, whether you make a shot, miss a shot. He is praising you the whole time. And I honestly think a lot of that is what's going on with Keegan and his shooting. Going into last night, I think Keegan had been shooting like 50% from beyond the arc. In the last 7 or 8 games. And, Doug's mentality is very much about elevating you from a mental standpoint. And you need that. You need that from a coach. And, a lot of time assistant coaches that's very much their kind of approach to things. But Doug is, obviously in the head chair now, and that's just who Doug is. It's who he was as a player. It's who he is as a coach. And I think that really is resonating with the players on a really like high level. And you're kind of, gradually getting a glimpse of like who Doug Christie is as a head coach. And, he's very much a player's coach, very, very much a player's coach. And so much of this game, you guys, is mental. And you talk about the Indiana game and giving up. I don't think necessarily that giving up is the right terminology. I understand why it looks that way. I think it's more like mentally defeated. And, to be able to combat that during an NBA season when you go through the tough spells. I mean, we talk about a 7-game win streak for the Kings. Well, the Bucks started out 2-8. They had a 7-game losing streak during that, period. And the Kings had a 6-game losing streak before this started. You can get so in your feelings and so in your head in a season, and it can just spiral out of control. And, from a mental perspective, I think that Doug has instilled in them a lot of faith in themselves right now as individuals and as a team.
Kayte, something that it's only happened once. It happened in the Bulls game that you guys called where they literally had their entire roster. It hasn't happened all year. It didn't even go for 2 games in a row because Malik missed yesterday. So I thought they did a great job of distributing minutes there. And that's something I want to see going forward for Doug and the coaching staff is, with a healthy Fox and Monk and Carter and Keon and Herter and DeRozan and all these guys that can play the perimeter and contribute and do good things, how they're going to, check all the boxes, get the best out of everybody with those minutes. I think that's going to be, while this roster is constructed like this, something interesting to watch with all those minutes that need to be shared with a lot of quality players.
Yeah. That's a challenge, but I guess I would prefer to have talent and be healthy than to not, and then make rotations a little bit easier. But this is, this team, and they always have been. This has been a great group of guys for quite a while. The last few years, it's been a pleasure to be around this roster. And I've been around a lot of Kings rosters over the years, and this one has been a special one in that sense. And by far, like for me, very, very fun to be around the people that are on this roster. And, Doug had mentioned, I believe it was the Boston game where Keon was supposed to go back in his normal rotation in the fourth quarter, but Devin Carter was playing well. And Keegan truly struggled with Jaylen Brown to start that game. Yeah. I mean, they ISO'd and he's a great defender, but there's some things just from size alone that you're not going to be able to combat for 48 minutes. And Devin Carter was playing well in the fourth quarter, and Doug went to, sub Keon back in, and he's like, hey, leave the young guy in. He's really doing something right now. Like, please tell me who does that in the NBA.
Right.
Like, how common is that? It's not common at all. And, it really is because this roster is about a we, not a me mentality. And that's evidence of it. So I think that, that gives them a little bit of freedom with rotation to have it be about who's going, who's playing well, who's, being effective on the defensive end, or who's, got things rolling on the offensive end. And that gives a little bit of freedom. But yeah, I would like to see a healthy roster. You're right. We haven't really got to see it this year. And even that one game, De'Aaron had come back after 9 or 10 days he had missed, and that is tough to do, to come back and just, be in game shape. And also, cause it's not like he was getting a lot of up and downs going on, cause he had a contusion to his gluteus maximus.
Why don't they just call it a butt cheek bruise? Why do we have to get all technical? We all know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if some people are offended. You got to be so careful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the defensive butt cheek.
I call it a tushy, but that also makes me very much a mom. Yeah. But yeah, so they didn't even really have it going in Chicago because it took De'Aaron, about half the game to kind of start getting back in the swing of things, and he was a little bit more passive because guys had been playing so well, I think.
Katie, just to wrap up here, we've kind of moved on from the whole Mike Brown postmortem. It is what it is. It happened, whatever. But I wonder if it's accurate. Look, here's what we can all say. Mike Brown's a great guy. Mike Brown's a great coach. He was coach of the year like 5 minutes ago. But is Doug's success and the team's success, which directly happened after the switch, not that one guy's a great coach and one guy isn't, but does this maybe underline kind of what we already knew, that in the NBA, you're probably as much, if not more, a psychologist than you are a Tex Winter, Pete Carrill, X and O's guy? I mean, it really seems like a lot of what we're saying to Doug, and no offense, by the way, to his X's and O's, but it really seems like a psychological thing he's been doing as much as anything.
Oh, without a doubt. I would agree with that statement, 99%,
I'm on fire today.
Yeah, I know. I mean, maybe you should just drink water.
Who are you?
In perpetuity. Well, I think that, your water diet, your head is not clouded, you're thinking straight.
She agreed with me more during this interview than she has in the last 10 years. I love it. More water.
I know. It's shocking for me, too. But no, it is very much psychological. And, I believe I mentioned it on air last night, and things kind of run together for me as well. But, I think one of the gifts that DeMar has is his calmness. And Jay Crowder also is looped into that because of his veteran experience. And the longer you've been in this league, the more things that you've seen. And the more success that you've had and experienced, the more you also understand kind of that the rough patches are just part of it. And it doesn't mean that success is not around the corner. So in that second quarter, when DeMar just kind of took over last night, it's really important for everyone to see and experience that and to acknowledge it, because it's really easy from coming back from, they were down 21 going into the second quarter. They had been down by 28 in the first quarter. Coming back from that is more about mentally taking that blow, absorbing it, and being able to fight through it and come out the other side than it is like physically being like, oh, now we got to get stops and get baskets, right? Because sometimes the shots aren't going to fall and you're going to struggle, and there's going to be a matchup that you just cannot find a solution or an answer to. And that's going to happen, but you have to mentally and psychologically be on solid ground, or else it can derail you into the Houston game, into the Washington game. And that's why it's really, very important to approach it from that way. And, you talk about the psychological part, a lot of it is also about not to get all, crazy on everybody, but self-love and loving what you do and what you give, and feeling confident in your skills and abilities. And, you talk about the 3-point shooting that the Kings have had this season. We've discussed it multiple times on this show. They have struggled. They are not shooting the ball throughout the first half of the season the way that they are capable of. The roster has not changed. So much of that can be psychological. And so, that's where you can see it derail a season, because they're capable. They have the shooters. They've struggled, yes, but that doesn't mean that has to be kind of their identity. And so I think that Doug is doing a great job in terms of just instilling that sense of like, great shot, no matter if it goes in or not. Great shot. Keep shooting that. Let it fly. Like, you're a great player. You know the game. Just trust in yourself. And that is such a huge, huge part of it. Because you can go in a timeout and you can drop a play, but if you're mentally not on the, steady footing, you're going to come out and you're going to turn it over, or you're going to miss. It just, you have to combat the psychological side of it more so than anything else.
Maybe they should do a 3-day water fast.
There you go.
So they're mentally connected. It's Kayte Christensen, the analyst for your Sacramento Kings, who has exactly 24 hours to do 100,000 different things around the house before she's back. No?
Nope.
What do you mean no?
It's a TNT game.
Oh.
Night off.
Yeah. I have.
She's off till Sunday.
Wow.
I do. I have one game in the next 7 days, and then life gets super crazy.
Yeah,
Golden State, back-to-back Denver starts that long trip
6
back
games.
to the East Coast again. Yes.
Yeah, well, don't unpack that suitcase. Have fun
Enjoy
over
the
the
break.
next few days. Exactly. Enjoy that break, and thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Sorry to get you up so early, and talk to you soon. And you're welcome, by the way,
All right,
for the
guys.
intelligent conversation. It's a 3-day fast.
Thank you, Jason, for that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
100%. All right.
See you later.
Okay.
Bye. That's Kayte Christensen joining us. We'll take a break. When we come back, we got standings watch, what to watch, pocket watch,
Swatch.
SWAT. Oh, I loved swatches back in the day. Watchman. We'll continue this during the break right here on Sactown Sports.
The only